Four, three, two, Zoom. LaChelle, it's so wild to think that we both live in San Francisco Bay Area, but the last time we met in person was actually over a year ago and all the way out in Chicago in the snow, no less.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really an interesting, happening that we've come across each other again here in the Bay Area.
I know. I'm thankful for that, though. It's a sunny spring day. So I think when I first heard you speak in Chicago, though, you were on a stage with Microsoft representing HP alongside other amazing leaders who were joining the event to share examples of digital transformation and how you got there. And you specifically spoke about how you and your team were bringing new technology to customers through artificial intelligence, cloud technologies, and building greater automations. You were even bringing a virtual agent to your customers to deploy help for your customers. So more effectively, when they were solving their problems, they could leverage this kind of experience. And the movement that you led is so powerful, but in listening to you speak, I also learned so much from you personally. And I was moved to the point of finding you after the event to connect one-on-one kind of off the side of the stage. So when Leah and I created this Power Half Hour initiative to bring mentors to a broader audience who are looking to grow personally and professional, I thought of you immediately. And I shared with Leah, we have to get LaChelle if her availability allows. So I'm really thankful to get together. And I think for so many, it can feel really intimidating or even difficult to reach executives who have achieved the things that they're aspiring to. But you have made it such a big part of your personal mission to help others, both men and women who are looking to grow. And I think it shows not only in you joining us today, but in your career path being recognized as one of the most influential Blacks in corporate America by Savoy and so many other things that you've done and represented. And during your 20 plus year tenure at HP, you've held senior management roles in global support, strategy, operations, executive operations, market, et cetera. A lot of various business units where you've offered your expertise. And even before this, you held positions in marketing and finance and represented brands that a lot of us recognize in our everyday, like Ernst Young, EY, and Clorox. I think that just represents a high level path to where you are today. Can you share a little bit more about where you see yourself today and the path that you took to get there?
Yeah, so first, I just want to thank you for having me and giving me, the opportunity to share, with other young professionals and others who are, looking at their careers and thinking about, how they navigate, the journey. For me, it started, early, partly because I was thinking about, back in high school, what career I wanted. And then from there, really looking at opportunities to join organizations, seek out mentors, learn about really the areas that I was interested in. And I was fortunate to have an opportunity to do internships while I was in college, working through an organization called Inroads that really worked with students from underrepresented backgrounds. And so that gave me direct visibility into the type of career that I wanted. And so as I started, my interview process during college, it was easy for me to really pinpoint the organizations that I was interested in. So, that led on to, going to EY right out of college. And then from there, through my network, learning about opportunities that were available at HP. And as you mentioned, I spent a long tenure at HP, over 20 years. And I had, a real, positive experience in addition to just a very career journey, obviously not traditional. I didn't stay in one function. I really moved across the organization and took advantage of the learning opportunities that were presented to me, in part because I personally, I'm always curious, want to learn more about the business and want to really figure out ways that I can use my skills and experience to add value. And so I, took full advantage of that while I was with the company.
Amazing. So with that being said, without any further ado, I would like to jump into the Q&A. So this is a question that we love to ask everyone, which would be work and life balance. This is a tricky one. I know I haven't mastered it yet, but I would like to know what you do to create that balance for yourself, and more specifically, how you spark joy in your life.
Yeah, I think work-life balance is a tricky one. I think everyone, depending on where you are in your career, and also really, what are the types of, roles that you're responsible for, it really takes on a very different dynamic. I would say I have not or had not really mastered it completely, but I think what was really important for me was to focus on exactly your point about, finding those things that really bring me joy. And so for those who know me well, they know, I really invest a lot of energy and effort in my pets. And so, I have a new puppy that I've been spending time during the pandemic with, learning about, and, just starting to really build that bond. And that also forces me to get outside, walk, spend time talking with family and friends. And interestingly enough, during the stay at home orders, it's been interesting that I've really reconnected with a lot of my family members who are, not in the Bay Area. And so we use, technology to really stay together, check in on one another, and even learn from one another. And so we've been spending a lot of time, talking about topics, learning about each other. Usually you don't have time to talk to each other about what you do at work every day, but I have a couple of aunts who've really turned it into an opportunity to really showcase the strengths of members of our family. So we have guest speakers, and it's really been, a very positive experience, even though we haven't been able to be together. So I really use this time, and in general, at any point in my career, to stay connected to family, to friends, and use things to be creative just outside of the everyday work.
I 100% agree. I've been trying to keep social with my family as well, and my pets definitely keep me sane. So 100% agree with you there. The next question I kind of wanted to focus on was your early life and career wise. What opened doors for you that way? You said you started pretty young, straight out of high school. So not only do I want to touch on your experience, but maybe for those who also, didn't get that head start, maybe are already in the entry level, how do they kind of open doors for themselves as well?
Yeah, I think the key for me was not only, being aware of what things were interesting to me, where I felt like I found energy and excitement, and where I wanted to learn. I mean, that was the beginning. But as I started my career and as I worked in organizations, it was largely about looking at assignments that were stretch assignments that took me beyond just my everyday work activities, that gave me exposure to different parts of the organization, gave me exposure to different leaders, and just added to my skill set and knowledge about the areas that I was working in. And it's interesting, I always reflect back on when I'm in a new role, there's generally something that I've done before that I can kind of look back to, as a learning. And so I think that's really important, is to always really be open to new opportunities, and get involved in areas that may be with your company's ERG groups, could be, again, a special assignment that maybe a leader in your organization is hosting. In particular, if you're in a large organization, oftentimes there may be initiatives that the company is launching, and they're looking for, folks across the organization to get involved so that they can have various perspectives. I think those are all ways to really give yourself a chance to, one, learn more, meet new people, expand your network, and just become very visible to what opportunities are out there.
I agree. I like to join the ERGs at our company, and it really just to hear everybody's perspective, no matter the department, it's super interesting. And kind of you're like, well, what are you guys doing over there? Keep it interesting and keep it fresh. 100%
So many
agree.
relationships outside of your department too. I have to say, when we're talking about ERGs, employee resource groups, I just recently joined our women's group at the current company that I'm at. And I think I had a little trouble navigating, what do we represent? How do I get involved? And then it was as simple as a conversation with some folks that were already a part of it. They're like, it's very simple, Christina, and here are the things that we're doing. And basically what our organization stands for is uplifting each other. It's as simple as that. And making sure that we're looking at what we're looking to drive, which is outcomes associated with our employee resource group. And then, making sure that the actions and the support for the team members to make it happen is there. So you don't really have to change much. You're just finding this broader community who's uplifting you and believes in similar things. And it's awesome because, how would you find a stretch assignment? How would you find something that your company is innovating in if you feel like you're in your own little world or siloed? Well, that's one way, I think, to connect with people who can get you those things too, to add.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've seen it time and time again. And there are, again, lots of, employee resource groups and different initiatives, whether it even be volunteering. I know, with a lot of the things that are happening around the pandemic and even prior, one of the things that we did when I led a team at HP was we worked at the food bank. And so we would oftentimes, as part of team building activities, get involved in the various community assignments. And that also enabled us to, again, either compete with other teams within the company or, learn about, other areas that are also doing some of the same initiatives.
I love that. And it's all for a good cause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually at the internship I'm with right now before the pandemic as well, that's one of our group social projects is that we also volunteered at a food bank. So definitely it was fun. It was like a competition, hurry up and, make the boxes and things. So definitely fun. It just got everybody going. But you did touch on visibility in the last question, which is another major thing that I wanted to touch on. As you said, you spent a lot of time with your past company, HP, over 20 years, you said. So how was that like being at a company for so long and kind of, you never really stayed in one spot, if that makes sense. So how did you stand out and kind of branch off?
Yeah. So I would say that, again, it was for me about career growth. The roles that I had, I navigated across functions, starting in finance, moving into marketing operations, strategy, and customer support. And in each of the roles that I had, again, I was really looking to learn something new, see the company from a different perspective. And a lot of my assignments really gave me a chance to, have an impact, to bring either a new process or a new program or drive change, or to learn even about how we engage with our partners or think about our position in the market. So these were all, kind of new things that I was adding to my skill set as I moved across. And that was one of the things that I was intentional about as I thought about the company, even before I landed at HP. One of the things I was very interested in was being in a place where I could see different aspects of the company and learn. And so that was something that I was intentional about. I talked about it with various managers and leaders that I worked for. Many of them were fantastic in terms of giving me feedback around areas that they felt that I needed to add additional experience. And I sought out opportunities to grow. And so this was something that was part of my development, something that, obviously I took ownership for, but I sought out different people who were supportive as well as who could give me a guidance in terms of either mentorship or sponsorship.
This question was huge, right, Leah? Like, this is one question. How do I stand out in some of these? People were saying Fortune 500 companies, these enterprise businesses. How do I stand out as an employee when working at a larger company. And it's funny because when we first met, we were talking kind of about this experience today. You mentioned that as why you wanted to work at a larger company, as seeing the potential to stand out. And so I love hearing this answer from you, because that can help those who listen here kind of think about it, change your mindset a little bit perhaps. And look, everything that you just talked about is adding value. It's projects, but everything that you touched on, you mentioned your contribution and being a part of that. So whatever you're doing, adding value and trying to support and stretch and innovate with your department and others. I love that. This is just a really popular question. So I'm glad that we're going into the steps on how people can apply, your mindset and the actions that you took at HP and beyond. I mean, EY is also a large company everywhere you've been. Same with Clorox.
Yeah.
These are definitely, huge companies, which is why I find it interesting, again, as Christina brought up, that you said you wanted a position like that, because as you stated, you kind of started off in accounting and things of that nature. So your background isn't technically like necessarily technology, but yet you kind of sought out a position in digital transformation in this company, which kind of tells me a lot about you as a person. You're really a go-getter, you're ready to grow, you're ready to learn. But I think a lot of people maybe get nervous and they're like, I don't know, I'm not used to it. So I guess my question is, how did you know you were prepared to make such a big change in your career in such a big company?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of it, like I talked about before, is being in, these stretch assignments and also cross-functional, roles. What it allowed me to do was see different aspects of the company, and that was something that I was very interested in. As I, went through my career in finance, early on, probably the first 8 years or so, I spent time in different divisions. And so I got a chance to see, different operations within an organization. And there was one leader that I worked for that I reached out to and talked about my interest in moving outside of finance. And so, the opportunity didn't immediately present itself, but what happened was, working with leaders who saw my potential, who also, occasionally would have, opportunities, new projects come up in their teams. Someone reached out to me and said, yeah, I recall talking with you about, an opportunity, your interest in getting outside of the finance organization, and you wanting to really try something in another area. Would you be interested in trying something in the marketing operations space? And so I took that opportunity, again, learned and saw something else that was interesting. And so as I continued to, navigate across my journey, it was really about learning from the people that I worked with, and then being able to apply that as I went to my next role. And so when I landed, in my last position where I led the digital transformation and customer service, prior to that, I had been leading a operations and analytics team and looking at strategy for customer support and working very closely with my boss, who was leading the organization at the time, and thinking about, strategies around how to make the organization much more productive and make it more differentiated, and also bring new value based on some of the assets that we had available to us and new things that were on the horizon. And so because I had, kind of that combination of skills from past experience thinking about the strategy, it was really about looking at how I could, work with a team that had vastly different, backgrounds. I had folks on my team who were user experience designers. I had project managers. I had software developers. And so folks on the team really brought together, all of the different elements that were necessary for us to achieve our objective, but really my thinking about the strategy and how we go about it, and also how to implement it and use the right assets and find even new innovation. That was really key to our success.
I find that really interesting because, as I said, people seem to think that this is kind of a downfall when you move from maybe different departments, but it seems that you found an advantage in it and was able to create a team from teams that you were able to work on. So that's super like just interesting.
I think a word that we use is like mobilizer, and the fact that your background is not necessarily where you ended up in your path, those previous experiences really helped. And I can relate to this because I manage partnerships and I work with tech-minded people who are really on the product side of the house and IT. And then we have marketers who are thinking about go-to-market and then sellers, ... But if you're in the center of all of that and you're mobilizing these teams to reach great outcomes together, you end up kind of translating across different departments because you understand how the thinking looks or the verbatim and how it might mean the same thing but sound differently. So you and I kind of connected on that recently because that's such an advantage.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty powerful in that really being that translator and looking at ways to bring together, kind of the assets to really make the outcomes happen. That's really important. And I think as people move through their careers and look at leadership opportunities more and more, it's going to be important to be able to think beyond just your specific role and look at how the various elements come together so that you create that value.
100%. I think better together has been coming up more and more, just in campaigns and things like that lately. And, whether that's internally, cross-functionally, if you can be that person to bring teams together. And you also mentioned follow-up, follow through, the small things. I would say the most underrated qualities that a person can have. If you bring those things to the table, you're the superstar. And the beauty of that is it doesn't really matter what department you came from. That's business acumen and just making sure that you're diligent and helping people communicate, making it easy to collaborate. And then you have this beautiful outcome, I would say. So I loved learning those kind of nuggets from you as well.
Yeah, those are great qualities to have and some that I'm hoping to learn myself and just keep that with me. So again, those are great qualities.
Nobody listening in has seen your notes, Leah. You are good. You're really good.
Well, let's go to the next question. This is one that I find personally interesting, but it is a hard hitter. Let's get prepared for that one. But, so my question is, what are you most proud of in your career? Or more specifically, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the last project, and Christina shared a little bit about my discussion at the Microsoft event last year, where we talked about digital transformation. That digital transformation program was really, I think, the highlight for me. It was a kind of a culmination of, as I mentioned, as I go through my career and look back, I think about all the different things that I learned and using various skills, whether it be my analytical skills, collaboration skills, bringing resources together, thinking about how to create value, strategies, all of those things, I really brought to bear in that role. And at the end of the day, created, something that's a sustainable outcome that's going to benefit the company and that has benefited the company. And so that was, I think, the greatest contribution that I reflect on to date, in my career. I hope to continue to make others. But it was definitely exciting, lots of learning, exposure to new dynamic, innovation that was happening in the marketplace, and also meeting lots of new people inside and outside the organization and the company. And so really just a valuable experience.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I guess that smoothly transitions us to the last question. Just listening to your answers and all of the projects and things that you were able to mention, it sounds like you've had like a very rich career and had many opportunities to work in different sections of your company. I guess that the question would be, was there ever a time that maybe you thought that an opportunity would not be the right move for you and declined it? Why or why not?
Yeah, there was one time that I was actually offered a promotional opportunity while I was still in finance. And that was an opportunity that I declined. And the reason I declined was because at the time, I had already started conversations about looking at opportunities outside of finance. I had been talking to leaders that I had worked with closely about, my interest in pursuing something different and getting more exposure to other parts of the operations of the company. And so as I thought about, promotion versus going down a different path, really, I felt that going down this different path was really what was right for me. And it has translated into lots of opportunities that I've had since. And so for me, it was really important to really know, kind of where I wanted to see myself in the future and position myself for those things and think more long term. I think that was really key for me.
I find that so interesting, again, because I know plenty of people who would have been like, I'm taking the promotion. This is what I want. But I think, again, it says a lot about you and your willingness to learn and grow within your company and make sure that you provide even more value, not only to your company, but for yourself and what was right for you. So I do want to thank you for that.
Everything's intentional, right? Like I don't know if it's my mind is on spring weather because it's finally sunny out or what, but it just makes me think of planting seeds, right? Like early on, you were looking at opportunities early on, which is what got you into your first internships, your first involvement in volunteering in your community. That started early for you. But even if you didn't do that stuff and you get into your first entry level position, it's still about planting seeds when it comes to relationships, when it comes to just sharing things that you love, your interest in growing, your curiosity about another department. Maybe you don't know if the other department's the right fit for you, but you think maybe it is. You throw that out there and then people start coming back to you and you're creating the space for yourself. And so that's a huge thing that I hope people take away from this, because you can't sit around and wait for someone to ask you, though that does sometimes happen. I mean, I think it's more likely to happen when you're planting those seeds and later you see those things blossom and there's the opportunity in front of you.
And I would just add one thing to build as a habit. And this was something that, I talked to my mentor about, and I had, even as, I went through my career, thinking about kind of the next role, while you're, in your role each year, most companies do a development planning cycle. Use that opportunity to start to vocalize with your direct manager and others, where your interests are, and then also chart a path based on skills that you might need to develop in order to move forward. I think that's really, part of planting and sowing the seeds is really kind of taking that action that you've now communicated what you want, and also you are taking the steps in order to be prepared for that.
When you say creating the path or having a plan, do you mean actually having a document where you're tracking this?
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard that too. I have a mentor that's advised that as well. And some people do it, some people don't, but I hear more success when people do it. But I mean, so many, yeah. But so many of us don't think that way, I think, unless you just don't consider that as taking it so serious as you're spending some extra time in your day and you're actually charting this path, and it's very intentional, and then having the communication with people too, so that you're sowing the seeds. Yeah. Absolutely. That's really how. Well, LaChelle, thank you so much for joining us today. If there isn't anything else that you wanted to add or anything at all, then I will close out and share with people how to reach out to you. But we just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I will just close by saying thank you again for the opportunity to share, and also, to just remind people as they think about, their career journey, it's really in their hands. And, take, every opportunity that you have to grow, to learn, to add new value, and also to explore. I think that, again, particularly as you go through your career, doors will open as you express, areas that you are excited about. But also looking at things that really take advantage of the skills and the excitement that you bring forward. You can make a big difference that way.
I love it. I totally agree. Just have fun with it, explore, be curious, right? And you'll, a lot of people are scared to do that, but what's there to lose?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, LaChelle. And we're going to close out by mentioning that we will have your LinkedIn associated with this video so people can add you on LinkedIn. We'll also have this video within YouTube. So if somebody misses this live today, then they can catch it in the future. We're so grateful for you joining us. Thank you, LaChelle.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.